These are the primary considerations that I would list for meaningful meetings. All right, and before we even start this, I think I will talk about the number one rule in public speaking. The number one rule in public speaking, and actually I used to say this for the longest time, the number one rule in public speaking is don't be boring. Whatever you do, don't be boring. Whatever you have to do to keep interest, do just that. But I recently was reminded that there is one that stands out even more so than that. Number one rule in public speaking, before you speak, check your zipper. That happened maybe 3 months ago in a meeting here. Kurt Schultz passes me a note. Hey, Ed, check your zipper. That one would take precedence over don't be bored. Connection considerations. Here are the 3 parts of a formal meeting. Very simple. Captivating introduction, a body, and a catchy conclusion. Here's why I want to go over that. The key words, captivating introduction. I want to do something that grabs everyone's attention from the get-go. And I want you to think over our previous meetings, whether it's a costume, whether it's an icebreaker activity where everyone's moving around the room, or it's some alarming statistic, or getting everybody out of their seat doing an I say, you say, and acting crazy. You need something to grab their attention. Because when they come into that meeting, they do not want to be there. And they're not necessarily sure what the focus is. So they're doing one of these numbers. You have to grab their attention with a captivating introduction. We try to capitalize on that on each of these meetings, whether they're subtle or whether they're very overt. The body of it is your main content that you want to deliver. You know what that is. But I put the word catchy in front of a conclusion. Before you draw things to a close, let's come up with something catchy that's going to just tie the net, that's going to remind them why we were here. And so that is it. I need you to think about that when you're preparing these meetings. Even a 10-minute meeting needs to understand there's that captivating introduction. There's the body of your content. And then you need that catchy reminder, that conclusion. I want to go into the types of formal meeting because there are going to be different times where there are different outcomes. Peter mentioned one of the things we want to do with a meaningful meeting is have the goal. That is to begin with the end in mind, the desired outcomes or actions. By the way, I designed these sheets so you don't have to write down a lot of stuff. I've written down almost everything with the exception of some statistics that you need to fill in. But you're welcome to add notes to it if you see fit. For the types of formal meeting, the first one is to inform or educate. To inform or educate. You just you're pulling your people together. Hey, there's some new options coming on this vehicle. I want to talk about it for the next 10 minutes. But you want them to really understand it. So you prepare for that meeting in advance. Okay? Hey, we've got a big service campaign, or here, let me go over some of the things that we have out as mailer pieces right now, because it's very important how we handle these. We're going to inform and educate. That is one kind of meeting. There's another kind of meeting that's reflective. Let's look back on what you did over the past month and let's talk about it. Okay? So you need to prepare for that kind of meeting in advance. What kinds of questions are going to spark interest, get them interacting, and following all of the things that we just previously talked about for a meaningful meeting. Role play. Role play. We did a little bit of that today. We did a little rehearsal. That was setting us up to be able to do a role play. So what we did this morning at the very beginning with the initial greeting is set up so that we would later be able to role play it. And when we're talking about skill development, you have to do this. Here is where one of our biggest areas for growth and development is getting your people to role play and actually do this stuff. It's one thing to give information, it's another thing to do it. Has there not been a huge shift from any of the teams, whether on the sales, service, doesn't matter, parts, any side, when you actually say, okay, let's pull aside and role play, how much of a difference has that made in your stores? Someone tell me about that. How much difference the hands-on approach? I'll ask one of the 3 guys in the back, or even Jason or Jeremy, anyone back there that I know is doing on a daily basis the role play. Marty.
Yeah, I can say something real quick. I know for a fact that role playing has made Maurice Hawkins into a better salesman.
Yes.
Because I could see him outside my office doing it, and when he started, he couldn't get through product knowledge, he couldn't get through the customer interaction. And then with these guys' help, and with all the other salesmen helping and giving him critiques, you could watch him transform into a 20-plus car guy a month. just done in a matter of months.
It's
Toastmasters is helping too, I think.
yeah, he's in Toastmasters as well. That has helped. He's doing the stuff to work on himself, but we've given him the toolkits here to be able to grow, and he's actually an excellent example of that. And I just want you to think about that. We've got to get in the habit of growing our people and make this a regular thing so they anticipate it. It puts them out of their, does it not put them out of their comfort zone? For a little bit it does, and then you start to get used to it and you appreciate it. You keep polished and sharp on your skills. The last one on here is to inspire and motivate. Sometimes that's what you need. Hey, we got a hard couple of weeks ahead of us, and you actually prepare with content in advance. One of the best examples of this, and I wish I was a part of it, is just a couple of months ago in anticipation for the Cash Bash. Jay had a meeting with all of the guys, had a nice dinner set, and I know you had prepared for that meeting in advance, and it had quite the impact on people. I've heard an awful lot of comments after that because of the story that was told and the thing that was designed to just inspire and get people excited about the activity. These little meetings have a huge, huge impact on our people. Okay, those are two sections. Let me rattle through the rest of these very quickly. When we talk about modes of communication, we've talked about this before. There are 3 modes of communication. It's the words we use, the tone and inflection, and the body language. Who remembers how much is dependent when we're communicating one-on-one in front of someone or in front of a group? How much is dependent on the words? Any idea? I want you to write down 7%. 7% is shocking. You think the words are the most important. Now, I'm not saying words aren't important. They're very important. But it's how they're coupled with the next two. Tone and inflection is going to be 38%. 38% of the way that you communicate when you're not on the phone, you're talking live in front of someone, is going to be dependent on the tone and inflection. You think about how much that plays into a conversation. You can pick up the phone and know something's wrong in a half second just from the intonation. That's why that is so much more important. And then that leaves, for our mathematicians, at least 55% for body language. Almost the most of our communication comes from the way that we speak from our body. It's the gestures. It says an awful lot more than the words do, but when you couple these 3 together, it makes it more impactful. So think about that as you're preparing for your meetings. For modes of receiving and perceiving information, it's all about listening and observing. We can't forget this side of communication. We've got to listen, we've got to observe. All right, let's go to the next couple. We'll talk about attention getters and connectors. Here are all the ways, we talked about that captivating introduction. Here are a number of ways that you can grab people's attention. You have the list there from alarming statistics, a statistic that's going to throw them off. We talked about in the previous segment, goal setting, the fact that only 3% are true goal setters and achievers. That is an alarming statistic, okay? I'm hearing that statistic is in question. I'm going to do a little bit of research on it. It'll be interesting. But it's interesting enough, it's an alarming statistic. It grabs your attention. That was the first thing that got me to act. It was an alarming statistic. Acting, imitating. You might start off acting or playing out a scenario. The other day a customer came in and they came in and said, you can grab everyone's attention if you start acting or imitating something. Relevant stories. Can you tell a story? How well do you tell a story? I mean, that is the master key to commanding people's attention, is how well can you deliver a story? Because if you can do that, people would rather hear a story than just hear you pass down information. Is that right? A story is a great way to do it. Can you tell a story and grab everyone's attention? Powerful quote. A powerful quote like Mr. Maxwell read today. That was a powerful quote. How about anything creative? How about facts that are connected to what it is you're about to teach? Any thought-provoking questions. One of those questions that just gets you to stop and think before you move forward. That is such a huge part of getting people to connect, is to give them the question, not the question that they can rattle off and answer real quick, but the question that makes them stop and think for a second like that. I've got to put some thought behind this before I answer. That's how you get to a deeper level with people. Change the intonation. Just by changing the intonation could be the start to a dramatic meeting. You can use a video or audio clips that will illustrate something that you want to tell. or you can use icebreakers. All powerful ways to start a meeting. Connectors. These are the ways you're trying to get someone to understand something that's very simple. You can use an example, you can use a non-example, this is how not to do it, or you can use an analogy. When I'm talking about presenting around an automobile or doing a walk around, I use this. I say, presenting is like being on stage. They can relate to that, being on stage. And now we talk about what happens when somebody is acting on stage. And then now we pull it back into a presentation. That's the use of analogy. Use examples, non-examples, and analogies to help convey your point. And the last thing I want to go over with you is toolkits. I believe this is one of the most important parts. If it's something that you want to take, you want them to take something away. Give them a tangible takeaway, a handout like I'm giving you today. That is specifically for you to do a better job with meetings or to have all the right considerations in mind. Show us, when you give them something in writing, it shows its importance. Subconscious mind goes to work on something that's in writing. All right, in the last bit, here are the ways you use toolkits. You give them a handout. That's a toolkit. Something that they can take with them. Something that has a how to do or what to remember from this. It could be a visual. And then you might even put it on a smaller version on a note card so they can carry it around and keep it handy. That's it. That's what I wanted to cover as ways to improve your meetings.